folks, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Experts. I'm here as always with another expert and get his take, in this case it's Mark Kelly of Team Aspire, to get his take on the current market, situations with the market, buying and selling real estate, all matters real estate. We go to the experts in the area, the leading agents, because we're in an ever increasing search for the common things between number one agents and all the best agents in the area on behalf of the sellers. So Mark, thanks again for hanging out with us.
That's a very flattering introduction. I appreciate it. I hope I can live up to the expectation.
I had one of my guests a couple of weeks ago say, I can't wait to hear what I've got to say after that introduction.
Yeah, I'm glad I made some notes.
Well, mate, I would have sent you a few questions that I often get from the audience and from the people who come to me with these sorts of questions. So I like to put it to because it's funny that different areas have different things going on in their areas. So I like to get the story on the ground rather than someone's take from on the other side of the world or the other side of the country.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, mate, but just before we get into that, what's a bit of your background that brought you to real estate, brought you to the success you've had?
Okay.
What brought you to us?
I've been around for a little while. I started in real estate in 1992. Mm-hmm. Originally, I come from an IT and HR background, mm-hmm. But I came to real estate after moving back to Queensland in 1992 with my new son and my wife, and started to work at Elders over at Sunnybank.
Okay. And
worked there for about 8 years, just under 8 years. Yeah, became Century 21 after a while, so I worked that area pretty hard. Yeah.
And just thinking about that time frame, 92 for 8 years, you would have seen the advent of the internet.
Yes.
You would have seen the advent of, would mobile phones really have been a transitionary thing?
I was lucky enough, the day before I moved back to Queensland, I bought a big brick.
Okay. Those lunchboxy things.
Yeah. And it got really, really hot and had a big cord to hang up. Yeah, so that was the first phone that I ever had.
So you've seen the complete advent of old school real estate through to what you're currently doing, which is embracing technology massively in order to leverage on behalf of your sellers.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, great changes afoot.
And I understand from your bio that your team sent to me ahead of time, which is that you were in the Federal Police.
That's right. That's right.
Mate,
yeah.
Real estate agent to federal copper.
Well, I've gone from real estate agent to federal agent, if you like,
right.
And then back to real estate agent again. So, look, I took about 13 years out, or 12 years out, leaving real estate. When the family got old, I sort of pursued a childhood dream to become a police officer, and I was lucky enough to travel the world, work in all sorts of situations, and drug matters and human trafficking matters, all through Europe and Southeast Asia and the Americas. I was very, very lucky, but I was spending 8 months of the year overseas towards the end, and so I decided to come back to real estate. Yeah, essentially what I found was that I was working for the goals of another organisation, but I wasn't really achieving my own goals. So I thought it was important for myself and my family to come back and reevaluate my life, and I thought I'll go back and do what I used to do, sell real estate with the benefit of some technology.
Well, and I suppose the other thing is, and just thinking out loud, that when I saw that, I thought I wondered how much of those people reading skills and those negotiation skills, with a view back in the police of getting a certain outcome, but certainly on behalf of your sellers now, the ability to be able to read a person and negotiate successfully, that would serve you really well, I'm assuming.
It does. It really, those sort of situations build upon the skills that we all have inbuilt within us. I was able to formalise a lot of those skills through lots of training, and I've been lucky or unlucky enough in some circumstances to negotiate when someone's life's at risk. So there is some comparison, I suppose, because I'm negotiating in relation to your life, and certainly your life's biggest asset.
Yeah.
So yes, I can draw on a lot of those skills to achieve some desirable outcomes. It's been really good.
And based on those outcomes, I know certainly in your area, but all areas, but I certainly know out by the bay in your area, the skills that we're seeing in agents that are getting the job done versus, because some properties are selling quickly, timely in the first couple of weeks or even month or whatever the case may be, selling quickly like they do in any normal market, and yet there's a lot of doomsaying on TV, and that's supported by the fact that some properties are sitting on the market for 6, 9, 12 months and even longer without a buyer, and there can't be no buyers because I know the amount of properties you're selling. So what's the difference between properties that are sitting on the market for 9 months and properties that are selling in 9 days?
Well, look, there certainly are buyers out there, no question about it. We're seeing more and more buyers every weekend. We've sold, or our office has sold 270 properties alone this year, just in the Bayside area. So we're seeing some tremendous results.
Yeah.
Our open home attendances are up, no question. In terms of the houses that are selling quickly and those that aren't, look, I think it comes down to the basics: price, presentation, and the promotion of the property. If it's not priced right, let's face it, it's not going to sell.
Okay.
If it is priced right and it's sitting there for a little while, you do need to think about reinventing it, looking at its presentation and the promotion of the property. And one of the things we do, the very first thing we do when we take on a new client, is we look at that presentation, and we bring in professional staging consultants who we work with, who are lucky to offer us a free consultation. And they come and do some simple things in the home to reassess it and make some recommendations.
Okay, so that's a free service,
Yes.
at least for the... And then, of course, if there's some changes that might require a small investment, you guys, I suppose, just put it through the ringer and make sure that it's a good return, and it is an investment, not just something that you do just for the sake of doing it.
That's right, it has to be a return on the investment. Look, some of those changes can be just as simple as moving a lounge room back. The example is, I'm looking to sell my home at the moment, and one of the things we did is bring in this particular staging consultant, and we moved, I got a really big lounge, and we moved it, and it changed the whole atmosphere in the room. And the things that you can do with the existing furniture and the existing accessories you've got in your home can change it entirely. And that's what these guys do. I'm not qualified to do it. I'm a real estate salesman. So well, let's bring in the experts.
Yeah, okay, good call. And so on that, so we've got it staged right, let's say. We present the property in the best way we can. What about price? I mean, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. We get in 3 or 4 agents, and yourself might be one of them, who's giving me a particular price. Aren't I as a seller going to go, well, you as a seller, aren't you going to go with the agent that tells you the highest price? I mean, is that a mistake?
It's certainly a temptation, no question about it. And look, I've fallen victim to it myself. You do have to be objective. You have to look at the things that are being presented to you as black and white evidence as to what the price should be. There are agents out there that will tell you your price is worth X. The temptation to go with those people is really high, but you've got to ask yourself, what is their performance level? What have they done in the last 12 months, say, and what are they doing right now?
Okay, and that was going to be the next question I ask you, is if we can't judge based on a price that's given, as tempting as it might be, because that's the bottom line, what are we looking for? So one thing you're talking about, what's their performance over the last 12 months? So how would they, because they're all going to say, I would suggest, and I know because I've interviewed a lot, they're all going to say, oh, we've been selling heaps. How would you get them to prove their skill and their worth and their value to you?
All right, well, one thing that I do when I go out to a listing presentation is, luckily I have, with the advent of the iPad, I don't have to carry around books of reams of paper anymore.
Right.
I show them my listings.
Okay.
I show them my buyers list, and I can actually take them straight onto our system online, which is called My Desktop.
Right.
And I can show what properties we've got on the market and their activity and the current buyers that I'm working with.
Okay.
So you need to be able to ask that. Look, but before I do any of that, and before I even invited an agent into my house, I'd be secret shopping them. I'd be going out to these open homes and seeing what they're doing on the ground.
Since a couple of my colleagues and I, we have done 150 odd secret shops, and that's that's gotten me some notoriety in that regard. But so I understand that you're looking, as well as selling, purchasing a property.
I am.
And you've been recently, because again, your team ahead of time said, you'll never guess what, you know, they told me about your, let's say, secret shop activities.
Yes,
What have you found out in your area specifically that, you know, that the agents that are performing well, what to look for in a good agent, what to look for as far as that's concerned in a, you know, not so?
Yeah. Look, I'm looking at it from 2 perspectives, obviously a seller and a buyer. I'm amazed actually in this market that agents aren't following up. Particularly with the reams and the multitude of information there is out there about how agents should be trained and how they can survive in such a tough market. The example is, I was looking at some homes over the weekend, did some drive-bys, had a look on the internet, did some drive-bys, and then I contacted the agent via the inquiry system on realestate.com.au.
Right, like
just
most
asked
buyers would do.
Exactly, like the emails we get all the time. And asked a couple of simple things. How long has it been on the market for? And I'd like to inspect the property, please. Would you give me a call? Left my email address, obviously, and my phone number. I contacted 9 agents in total, and I received one reply.
One out of
Monday
9.
morning,
Okay.
yeah, which is
I got to say,
amazing.
unfortunately, and this is why I love bringing experts like yourself to the table, I used to be really surprised by that. And after doing that now 149 times, we visited 149 agents at their open homes. And unfortunately, those results are probably typical. They're about typical of what they can expect, what a consumer can expect. Because here's the thing: if you were to get a hairdresser, and you were to go to a hairdresser once every 6 weeks, and they did a bad job on haircut 1, well, you're going to change hairdressers every 6 weeks until you find one,
Absolutely.
and then you're going to stay with them forever.
Yes.
So it might take you 6 weeks or 12 weeks or 18 weeks to find yours, and then you stay with them forever.
Sure.
Here in our industry, because we don't sell a property, we only sell a property once every 5 to 7 years, if maybe only once. We don't have the benefit of hindsight with which who's a good agent. So it's key indicators like you've just described, follow-up and response time to an email inquiry, or follow-up at an open house, that are the only key indicators that we've can judge our real
Look,
estate.
you can't sell a house without buyers, and look, even if you don't go and visit the houses, look at the area that you currently live in, search that area, pick 20 properties and send 20 inquiries. See what you get back. And start there.
That's excellent advice.
And then bring them into your house,
Yeah.
and then see what happens from there.
So if we went to a Team Aspire, which is Mark's team, a Team Aspire open house, for example, and say the one of the audience members does exactly what you've just suggested. They secret shop you
Yes.
and 10 other agents, if
Yes.
they've got time.
Yes.
4 other agents,
Please
whatever.
do.
What sort of experience would they get? That imagine they weren't in your area, so they were up in Cairns or something.
Yeah.
And they were going to choose a really good agent based on that. What sort of criteria should they look for in the equivalent of Team Aspire up there versus the ones who are going to be the 9 out of 10 that don't follow up at all?
I'm with you. Look, what we're seeing now is because there are buyers in the marketplace, they're very market savvy, if you like. So they will go and maybe they may attend 10 or 11 or 12 open homes in one weekend.
Yes.
I need to try and keep you in my home as long as I possibly can. So I create an environment that is inviting and engaging, and I'll do everything in my power to keep you there, to at least engage you in the property and give me enough time to establish what your needs are as a buyer, the types of things you're looking for, and if it is the right property, you'll be getting from some serious follow-up. Having said that, everyone will get follow-up. People will attend the open home. Within 20 minutes of leaving, they'll receive a text, which is just simply, thank you for coming to my open home.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was going to, because again, your diligence, and I know how successful you are, so I would even say, even if it was a bit over the top, I wouldn't question it because you've been doing really well. I wondered, so you're not annoying following up, but it sounds like a simple SMS, just thanking them, is pretty soft but decisive.
Yeah, look, it actually says, thanks for attending our open home at address. I'll be touching base later later in the day just to see how you're going, and we'll do that. We'll follow up and just say, what are your thoughts on the property? You've had a busy weekend, what are your thoughts about my property? If they don't remember it, well, I pretty much know what that's going to be. But if they are interested, then I will follow up again on Monday.
Okay.
Because by then I'll have an idea as to what the type of property is that they're looking for. And if it's not mine, it might be another one of my clients.
Yep,
So
fair enough.
I'll bring them to there.
Yeah. So we're up in Cairns. We've gone through a couple of agencies. Let's suggest that if we haven't heard from them by Monday, Tuesday, or even Wednesday, or not at all, that we go with the guy who follows up on the day, because at least that's one indicator that they're going to do a good
That's
job
a good
in other
starting
areas.
point. Yeah, a very good starting point. Wouldn't necessarily mean that's the end game as far as choosing an agent's concerned, but you'd certainly be ruling out the ones who didn't follow up.
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
Yeah.
So once say you got in a home, because I know you're notorious for your negotiation skills, and we talked about your background in the police force.
Sure.
How would you know that you've got a good negotiator right in front of you? Once you get to their home and you're talking and you're interviewing their agent, what are you looking for in if you were going to interview an agent to sell your property?
Yes.
How would you be grilling your agent in making them prove that they are a good negotiator?
That's right.
Because I bet you they're all going to say they are.
They are. In fact, they do. It's actually very common. I'm a great negotiator. You hear that all the time. One of the things you could ask them is, why are you a great negotiator? What makes you a great negotiator? And it could either be formal qualifications, it could be years in the industry. But you could ask them, give me an example of the last property you sold or the last difficult property you had, how you negotiated that sale to a successful conclusion. and ask them to walk you through the steps from the time the offer was initially made right until the contracts were signed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially you're asking them for you to not only just say you're a good negotiator, but demonstrate how exactly you do that.
That's right, but in a way where you're demonstrating it so that you're working for me as your client, how are you negotiating the sale of this property to my benefit?
Yeah.
Because you're working for me.
Yeah, I tell you, I've got to say that many agents, and these are probably the ones that are not following up, their idea of negotiation is jockeying a contract back and forth between buyer and seller.
Absolutely.
And that's certainly not what you're doing,
Oh, no,
is it?
no,
Okay.
no, not at all.
So they'd hit you up for a demonstration there and then.
Yes.
And would someone who's not the agent to choose, what would they do when made of that request? Would they be fumbling over their words? Like, again, that's a really interesting
It shouldn't be scripted, but it should flow naturally. The negotiation it's actually something that's very hard to be qualified in. You can't. I think there's only one negotiation course that's non-government or non-police related that I know of, and that's in America.
Right.
And I think a colleague of ours, Matt Steinway, has done it.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
I must hit him up about that.
Yeah. Apart from that, no. You'd really have to go with your gut instinct after hearing them describe the process to you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an excellent tip, and I've never been given that one, so thank you. That I'll put that one in. Role play negotiation from start to finish with your agent and see how they perform.
Sure.
Because if they think it's tough one-on-one in a role play situation, how are they going to go out there when there's tens of thousands of your dollars on the line?
It's a lot of money.
Excellent, mate. So one other thing that's certainly coming to me a lot lately from requests from the audience are the question of advertising. Now, you've mentioned promotion before. The question of advertising and marketing. Some of the feedback has been, the agents only want to advertise and market to get their face in the paper. I understand that, to sell any product, we need to market it.
That's right.
What's your take on that particular perception that the marketplace has that we and real estate agents only market a property to market themselves?
Look, it's something you hear quite a bit, actually. For example, the local paper, the Bayside Bulletin, which we use, in fact, our company takes up, I think, the first 10 or 13 pages. Sure, it's great promotion, but that's not its sole purpose. Its purpose is to sell your property. And I say to my potential clients and my clients, you have to fish where the fish are. In a market like this, you can't say you're going to just rely on the internet. It just doesn't work, because as we all know, a lot of buyers will move and sellers will move within that same area. And of course, they'll read the paper.
Yep.
It's delivered for free. The majority of people will read that local paper.
And so on that, because I've interviewed a lot of experts like yourself, and one thing I've found is unique in that I've had agents expert in other even areas, sometimes of southeast Queensland even, where we are, and I've interviewed, as you just said, Matt Steinway down from Sydney and other superstars in their area. Some of them have abandoned local papers completely because, I love the way you just articulated that, fishing where the fish are.
Yes.
You guys, obviously, I'm guessing, do you guys monitor where your inquiry comes
Absolutely.
from?
Yes.
And you've found that the local paper still bears fruit in line with the investment.
Absolutely,
required.
and it will vary from area to area. In this particular area where we work at the Bayside over at Redlands, the newspaper is very property focused. So much so that you'll have 2 pages just for open for inspections. People will print those out. People will bring them with them and have them in their hands when they come to the open home. And of course, one of the things we do is gauge the response when they come to the open homes. When we fill out the information, it's how did you find us? Internet, paper.
And mate, I must say that not blowing smoke up your bottom, but very few agents, I must say, measure. So how do they know?
It's not my money, Glenn. It's my client's money. So I have to make sure that I'm accountable.
I love it, mate. I love it. And I hope that some of the sellers who are considering who to choose, even if they're not in Mark's area, again, take some of that advice and apply those criteria that Mark has articulated it better than I could in some ways. Put your agents through the ringer using those criteria. And I must say, I'm just imagining if you said to your agent, demonstrate to me your negotiation skills, that the one who doesn't fumble over their words and can sit there and role play with you those skills, certainly would put you at the top of my list over the guy who goes, oh, well, I'm really good, Glenn. I'll handle it with the clients, but, you know, I don't really know. I only know in the moment, Glenn. You know, well, yeah, so no, put him through the ringer. Folks, I've been with Mark Kelly. Now, I do understand that you've repackaged your Bayside real estate guide since you've given me mine, and I appreciate that. Can I hit you up? Because I understand that a lot of your tips and a lot of the stuff we've talked about briefly here today are contained in this information package that you put. Mate, can I hit you up no matter where the audience are? Can I hit you up for a copy of that stuff? Would that be okay?
Oh, absolutely. In this DVD, there's a ton of information that will help. Lots of local area information on sales, lots of property statistical information. But I've also put some great ebooks in there, and there's one in there on negotiation.
Excellent,
which is really, really good.
Oh, good on you, mate. I mean, I tell you, I had a look through some of that stuff, and I thought, you know, it's as comprehensive as I've ever seen. So, mate, excellent. If you could make that available, what I'll do is I'll just get, maybe they could SMS. Yes. I'll get that number printed up here, and they can just SMS you to get a free copy.
No problems at all.
Wonderful, mate. Folks, I've been here with Mark Kelly from Team Aspire, auctioneer and real estate agent out by the Bayside. And certainly if you are in that area, do not hesitate to put Mark and his team on your shopping list. He, as you've seen today, he won't disappoint. But certainly if you're not in his area, put his criteria to the test. And in order to, well, look, the agent who's got skills less than Mark's will be uncomfortable with your questions that you put to them. And it's good to find that out now rather than in hindsight with that 20/20 hindsight, because that 20/20 hindsight, when you find out after, is going to cost you money. So, Mark, mate, thanks again for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.